It relaxes me. It calms me down.
All right, so my favorite bio to give is that Annie is a badass rock climber up in BC in the height of our northern Canadian friends. But she is also an arm wrestling champion of the world, and so now she works with mindset using NLP and hypnotherapy to work with people to get that athletic mindset to do all their things. So I'm going to let you take it from here, Annie. It's going to get a little noisy on my side, so I'm going to mute myself and just take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's great to see so many of you here today. And thank you for that lovely introduction. It may also get noisy on my side. My toddler, I'm in the basement. My toddler is above me with my parents, and we have very thin floors. So if you hear some noises, it's just him playing up there. So yeah, welcome. I'm excited to be here with you all. And so is everyone looking forward to the next 60 minutes? Awesome. Cool. So I just wanted to kick this off first of all, before I start sharing my screen, and just ask a couple of questions. So who here would love to just walk away from the next 60 minutes knowing how to create flow, like on demand, rather than just waiting for it to show up? Who here would like that? Awesome. And who here would want to know how to build the internal conditions within your body and your mind so that flow becomes something that you just naturally embody, that you don't even have to think about? Cool. Awesome. Because it's not something that just shows up. It's something that we can actually generate and we can create within ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead now and just share my screen here. Just got to find the right tab here. There we go. Awesome. So can you all see that page there? It says find flow on purpose. Awesome. We got there. And I'm just going to bring my notes up. Cool. We got there. So yeah, this is a picture of me right there standing on stage in Romania a few years ago at the World Championships for arm wrestling. Something I'll go into right away here. I'm just going to go on to the next slide. So yes, as Kathy said, I'm a 4-time Canadian national arm wrestling champion. And that picture there is right after I won the nationals. And so a few years ago, I was competing, and arm wrestling is all done in weight class. So I actually won 2 gold medals in my own weight class, and then on 1 on each arm. And then I also won the 2 of the weight class above me, because you can enter as many classes as you want that are above yours. And it's something that I just fell into completely. I wasn't looking for this, and it just happened randomly at a wedding. Some people who were professional arm wrestlers were there, and they brought out these arm wrestling tables, and me being competitive and having good upper body strength. I've been a climber for getting close to 30 years now, I think. That's the first time I've said that, but it's actually shows how I'm like, oh, it has actually almost been 30 years now, I think. So I've always had good upper body strength from that. And at the time when I started, I was also a raft guide, and I still dabble in that too, because that's part of a family business. So I still do a bit of that, but I was doing that full time then. And so my upper body strength was very good. And I had a natural affinity for arm wrestling, and then it just took off from there. And then 2 years later, I was a national champion. And that was awesome. I'm also, like I said, or like Kathy said, I'm an avid climber, live up in British Columbia in a beautiful little mountain town. So we're fortunate to have that on our doorstep where we can climb, we can snowboard, we can paddle, and basically do anything that we want to do in that environment right outside of our doorstep. And I just put on this screen here, soon to be an avid runner. And I wanted to just say that in a way because even as an athlete, and you know, I'm fit and I'm strong and I have certain things that I am very good at. I've always said to myself, "Oh, I'm not a runner. I don't like running." And I kind of stuck to that belief that limited me, a limiting belief throughout my life. And recently I decided I want to change that. So, me being me and being overly ambitious, I signed up for an ultra marathon for next summer because there's one that happens in our town where I live. And so I'm going to be doing 65 kilometers next July. And luckily, I've got a really good group of ultra runners, support friends within the town where I live, to train with. And so I am actually super excited about that and getting into that. And so I can keep you all updated on that as that journey goes on as well. And I also like that I'm embodying. It allows me to embody what I teach to other people, what I coach to other people. Because to me, an athlete isn't just someone, you know, isn't just a professional level athlete. Anyone who is passionate about their sport and that they are in, to me, is an athlete. And so I really wanted to put that out there and show that I'm also doing that, and something that I've really never done before, and that you can have that mindset to carry you forward in something like that. And so I first got on this journey as a massage therapist. So, well, I guess before that, so when was this? Almost 20 years ago now. Went to university and got my degrees, my master's degree in psychology. And then after working in that field for a couple of years, I left that field. That's when I came over to Canada, basically just to have some fun for a year. I'm from the UK originally, and then I never left, and that was almost 13 years ago now. And I love my lifestyle here and the things that I get to do. And as that was developing, I then went back to school and became a massage therapist. And again, as a massage therapist, I was focusing on working with athletes because that is just what I'm passionate about. And then also anyone who was coming to me, I don't really do relaxation massage, it's all therapeutic. So anyone who's coming is coming in some degree of pain, whether that's just a bit of discomfort, aching, sore muscles, or all the way through to the other end of the spectrum of severe chronic pain. And, you know, talking to these clients, and I spend a lot of time with them, it was very apparent to me that there was a emotional, psychological element to them, as you know, if they're dealing with pain, but also as an athlete, it isn't just about the physical or even the physical recovery, you know, through things like physio, massage. And there's such an important mental element to these things. So that's when I went down the line of hypnotherapy, and I got qualified, I got certified as a hypnotherapist, again, focusing right from the beginning, focusing on working with athletes. And then later on, that developed into going into NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which just is a deeper level of subconscious work. And I went into that so I could really develop a full coaching program and work at a level that we're really working through tying people's values into their beliefs, which then allows them to just behave the way they want and act and perform how they want in their sport. So that allowed me to just kind of deepen that knowledge in that. And so obviously when I'm thinking about flow, my mind goes to athletes. because that's who I work with and that's who I'm passionate about. But this can show up in all kinds of human experience. It isn't something that is just for athletes, and especially in creative fields like musicians, artists, but also even other professions like surgeons. They need to be in a sense of a state of flow when they're going through hours and hours of a precise surgery that they're doing. And then also for anyone listening, anyone that's part of top, it's also a state that we can access as an entrepreneur. A lot of us are presenting regularly, speaking on stage, or even pitching in boardrooms. All of these can be something where if we can create that flow within us, we're going to kind of feel so much more connection to what we're doing, but also that calmness in our body in order to perform exactly how we want to, by creating that flow state. So essentially anyone can experience flow when the challenge that they're experiencing stretches them just enough, and they have the skills to meet that, and then they're also fully present in what they're doing. So I just want to ask the group here, thinking about those three things, so perfect blend of challenge, skill, and being fully present, who has experienced a feeling like that before, whether in an athletic sense or in the work that you do? Yeah, okay, I see Jared's got his hand up there, and yeah, a few little reactions there. So, and it's not, sometimes it happens unconsciously within your body. But the fact that if you notice that when you perform really well, and then some people may say to you, "Oh, how did you do that?" And you're just like, "Well, I don't really know." It's hard to explain because it's a feeling, it's a sense, it's an energy. It's not necessarily something that you can put into words because you're purely in the moment. Time can kind of get distorted, but you just felt in sync. You felt in the zone. And then, the movement or the pitch you're giving just feels effortless at that point. But from the outside, that, for people watching, that can seem like, oh, well, it's just luck. They had a lucky day. They got out of bed on the right side this morning, or oh, the other team just got lucky. Everything seemed to just line up for them. But it's about alignment within us, and that we can kind of create that to basically embody it and know that it's something that we can train. And so today we're going to be exploring how you can help yourself to just drop into that state. Okay, so we're going to go into a little bit just about what flow is. And so, has anyone here heard of the 4% rule? No? Okay. So the 4% rule is basically, and it's the interpretation of data and research that is out there to say that this is a challenge that stretches you just enough. So 4% is just enough, turns out to be 4% above your current skill level. Or that has, like I said, it was what has been interpreted from research and data that is out there. So it's more of a guideline and not necessarily precise scientific law where if you're at 5% it's too much, and if you're at 3% it's not enough. But it's just to give you a little idea that when we're saying, oh, it's just slightly above your skill level, it is just ever so slightly above it, because that is what helps to push us into that sweet spot, because we need it to have a level of challenge where we feel like we are being pushed. And so talking about that sweet spot has become known as the flow channel. And you can see on that on that graph that I've got there. We've got skill level along the bottom, challenge level along the side there. And so when the boredom and the anxiety are minimal and they meet in the middle, that's when you find yourselves in that flow channel. And when the skill level slightly outweighs the challenge, or sorry, the challenge outweighs your skill level, and so you're getting that arousal, which is just the perfect amount of stress to increase performance to a certain point. And that arousal, that stress, is basically like your internal activation system. And when we look at that, it follows like a predictable curve. So if you have too little arousal, you feel flat, uninterested, disengaged. But then too much and your nervous system is overloaded. Tension rises, your mind speeds up, your body tightens, and then your performance decreases. And I think of this often in terms of like my climbing. And so if I'm pushing myself to climb a grade just slightly above what I'm capable of, or what my skill level is, so like 1 or 2 grades just above what I know I would have no problem at climbing, that would be the kind of perfect sweet spot for me, where I know I could create flow in that moment to achieve that grade, so that I'm not basically over gripping at that point. Because if I went too high and, wanted to do something 3 or 4 grades above my skill level, then the likelihood of me completing something like that drops. Because at that point, if I start over gripping, my whole body is going to become tight, and my mind is then going to kind of get into a loop, and everything kind of goes downhill after that. And so that's what it means, really, where that sweet spot is, and having just an adequate amount of stress. Because if any of you have ever done any climbing before, there's a natural fear of falling within that. It's not just a fear of failure or a fear of other people judging you, but a physical fear of falling, because that's ingrained in us. And so you do need that calmness within your mind and your body to be able to deal with that fear in the moment, and not let it affect you to the point where it's like overwhelming. And so in that sweet spot, that is where your brain releases those beautiful neurochemicals that help you focus and stay present and just stretch into that into that next level. And so how do we know that flow is something that we can train? And we know that because it's not just a mystical experience or a happy accident. It's a physiological and psychological state that has been studied, has been measured and mapped out. And they've looked at the neurochemistry of it, the brain waves, attention patterns, and the performance markers that people experience during flow. And what they found is that it does follow a consistent set of rules, essentially, or factors that need to be present in order for that flow state to be created within your body. And this again shows up across sports, professions, and creative fields. Like, this is something that can be applied to lots of different fields. So yeah, it means this state it's not random. And then if it's not random, it means we can reproduce it, and it means that we can train it. And yeah, they showed there were these certain patterns that when the brain and body are doing following those patterns, then they can be also intentionally recreated. So I'm going to move on to that. So you can see here we've got five core elements, and probably just looking at that before we even go into talking about it. If you think about just being an entrepreneur and work that you do, you can probably recognize how you may have experienced this before, because you've kind of embodied these 5 things. And I know from me as a hypnotherapist, as a coach, I do allow myself and create that state of flow within myself before I get on a call with someone, because there's a exchange of energy there, and if I'm in that state, then they're going to feel that energy, and it's going to allow them to get into that state too, and just benefit even more from the work that we're doing. So it is something that I use these tools that I'm going to be showing you later just on a daily basis, and I even used them before I got on this call and started presenting, to kind of get myself into that state that I want to embody during a presentation. And so number 1, clear goals. So you know exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it, and when you're going to do it. And when we're talking about clear goals in the sense of sports and athletics, this isn't just, I'm going to win this thing. Because we all know about goal setting, it can't be vague like that. It needs to be clear to remove any of the ambiguity, because if it's a vague overarching goal, then it's not clear of how we're actually going to achieve that goal. So by being more specific about it, it cuts through that noise. It cuts through any hesitation or decision fatigue, because we already know exactly what we need to do to achieve that goal. And so when the next action is really obvious to us, that's when that momentum becomes almost automatic. And then that's when it's happening at a subconscious level, and we're not even consciously thinking about going into flow. With practice, it's gonna all come automatically and unconsciously. And yeah, so you may have seen this, that if when your goal is more vague, your mind scatters, you might jump between tasks, second guess yourself. And then when you're more precise, when your intention is precise, then the outcome, the being in that moment, everything kind of sharpens for you and comes together. And that can be really powerful, because your mind gets a single, like, meaningful target to lock onto, and then the focus becomes streamlined instead of fragmented. And so number 2, flow thrives when you can immediately sense whether you're on track. And that feedback, it comes from 2 places. So the first is external. And so that might be physical, like external, in terms of you see yourself doing the thing. So you see yourself sticking the move. For me, arm wrestling, I see my opponent's hand hit the table, and I get the pin, or I hear a coach supporting me. All of those things are that external information to know that we're on track and we're getting that feedback. And then there's the internal. So you feel it in your body. Your breath might settle, tension drops, movement becomes smoother, and then you know you're in the right rhythm. Because if we look back at that picture that I showed earlier of me after I won those gold medals, there's a lot of outward energy in that, and that's when I can kind of let it out. I don't want to let that out right when I'm in the moment of the match, because it wouldn't benefit me to let that out at that moment. I need to have more control, to have the focus and know exactly what I want to do. But then once that has finished, that's when you can allow yourself to let that energy out, because when you're competing, you've used it to your advantage to perform exactly how you want to, and then afterwards you can just express it however you want to after that. And so knowing that, it just keeps you fully engaged in the moment, because your body is just telling you that what you're doing is the right thing. So number 3, that inner critic, and that quietens down, and you step out of that evaluative awareness, kind of conscious awareness of self-monitoring on what you're doing, judging, second guessing, and instead of that, you move into a more immersive experience. And that's that state of feeling complete integration. So your thoughts, your actions, awareness, they all line up perfectly. And the shift from thinking about doing the thing to just becoming the person doing the thing. There's not a lot of thinking involved at that moment, because you're purely in the present moment, and you're just responding. You're responding to the environment in real time, instead of planning each little micro step the next second. But so you're purely in that moment. And that kind of leads into number 4. So time distortion. And again, you may have experienced that, where we're so in the moment that we kind of forget about time and what time is it and what is going on, because we're so focused. And it may feel like time speeds up for some people. It may feel like time slows down. And so if we think of like a sprinter, if each stride they're taking is deliberate and spacious, they may say something like, well, that 10 seconds felt like 2 minutes, because they're in that zone, they're in that flow. And at that point, everything around you just disappears, and you're in that moment. And so it can feel like a really long time, even though it's just a few seconds. And that is something as well that I notice in clients and the work that I do when we're talking, in hypnotherapy. That altered perception of time is something that definitely occurs within that, because when we're going through that session and they're in deep trance, that you're very much in that exact moment. And so there is that sense of flow in there as well. And that's kind of what I was saying about that energy exchange, because when I'm working with that way with a client, I am embodying that too. And I'm almost putting myself in a trance while I'm doing it with them, because then they're feeling that energy from me, and it just makes that experience even more immersive. So yeah, back to time distortion. So your focus is going to narrow so intensely that your brain just stops tracking the time, and then you lose that sense of rushing or waiting. You're just in that moment. So number 5, effortless feeling. So at this point, you're not trying to do anything. It just happens. And again, these all tie in together. So with that time distortion, when you're just in that moment, that's when your body just knows what to do. Everything feels smooth, everything feels automatic. And even though it might be a complex thing, as a professional athlete, what people are doing is not necessarily, it's not easy, but it can still feel automatic, and it can feel smooth. And it's not even thinking about the years of training that you may have done to get to that point, because it just feels so effortless. And at that point, that's basically your subconscious running the show. It knows exactly what to do. It's on autopilot, and the movement just happens. There's no conscious interference, so that whatever you're doing, whether you're sprinting, climbing, arm wrestling, it just feels effortless. Yeah, even though it might be the product of years and years of training. So now I'm going to get into the fun stuff. We're going to do a few little exercises here to basically show different things that you can do before you're going into an experience, whether you're an athlete or maybe you're getting up on stage, or even, like I said, just going into a boardroom to pitch something. These are things, little tools that you can keep in your back pocket to access when you want to access them. Okay. So the work that I do with clients, we do a lot of deeper subconscious work with them on a much more kind of intimate level, and then I give them all these tools as well, so that they can just access that flow state and create that flow state when they want to. So number one here is using our peripheral vision to activate our entire brain and reduce that stress level, so we're getting just the right amount of arousal and we're not getting too much arousal, and we're just trying to get our nervous system on board. And there's other things that you may do to do this too. You may be someone who likes to do some grounding or meditating, and so this goes along with things like that, but it's just a very, very quick way to regulate your nervous system and calm down your breathing, because when you soften your gaze and allow your vision to widen, your brain interprets that as I'm safe, there's no threat, and I can relax. And that's where we want to, that's the frequency where we want to have our brain, so that we can be calm and focused in what we're doing. So what I'll get you to do, if you're able to, probably not if you're driving. I don't suggest doing these things if you're driving. But what I want you to do is kind of pick a spot on the wall, kind of, so your vision is looking up. So this could even be a spot on the ceiling as well in front of you. And that first action of just pulling your eyes up like that already activates the nervous system in a way that we want it to. So I want you to be looking up to a spot on the ceiling. I want to keep your eyes focused on that spot. And then as you're focusing on that spot, I want you to start to notice what is going on in your periphery. So even though you're focused on that single spot, maybe you notice a light out to the side, or maybe there's a painting or a piece of artwork on your wall, or you can sense, you get a sense of the door behind you. And so as you start to become more aware of what is going in your periphery, you may start to notice that there's just a sense of calm coming into your body. And this isn't just the visuals that you're noticing. Notice those sounds around you as you extend your periphery that you may have missed before. That might be sounds outside your window. Maybe there's a car, or maybe you can even imagine the sounds, where you might even imagine a dog barking down the street. And even though you're focused on this one spot, you can allow your periphery to expand and kind of have a full awareness of what's going all around you, even behind you, above you, below you. And as you do that, then you can bring your eyes down to eye level. and then just come back to this moment. Did anyone feel just a sense of kind of calm happening in their body while they were doing that? Yeah. And that's something that like I do on a regular basis. And once you've practiced something like that, you can do it very, very quickly to a point where you're not consciously being aware of what is going on in your periphery. You just automatically feel that calm sense within your body. And so you can do it literally in seconds, where you can kind of take a breath, look up, and then bring your awareness back down. And while you're doing that, you're just bringing everything into your peripheral awareness. And so it can literally be done done in seconds. And it's something that is very useful when you are about to go in to do something that you're maybe feeling a little bit stressed about. And it can just help you bring that level of focus to where it needs to be, in the calm within your nervous system. Amber says, sounds like something I could use when I'm in a sensory overload moment. Yes, definitely. And the more you practice something like this, the more when you are in those moments, you'll just be able to access it. And at that point, you can just, it's not like you have to do the whole thing where you raise your eyes up and come down. Once you've practiced it and you're experiencing something like that, sensory overload, you just put your awareness in the periphery. And the more you practice that, the more it's just going to come naturally. Yes, very good for public speaking. I just got back. So I actually just got back from Ottawa not long ago, earlier this week, from taking an advanced my advanced coaching certification. And one thing that they had us do was get up at the front of the class and give it was just a 2-minute speech, but we had no preparation for this and we didn't know it was happening. And so when you're told something like that, even though it's just in a room of like 20 people, for me, that was something that really built up that feeling of stress inside me. Because even though there's part of me that wants to do it, this is something that's just I've just been told about. I've had no time to prep, and then I'm handed a microphone and it's like, go do the thing. And so and I was in a room of people who do all this kind of thing for a living, so we were all doing it. We know the tools. And so you could see everyone getting them, taking a breath, getting into their periphery, and then also using a couple of other things I'm going to go into too. So yeah, keep that in your pocket. It's there for you, and it's there for you when you need it. And so this next thing, a submodality shift, and what that is, when we think of pictures in our mind, whether that's something that we've experienced or something we're going to experience, it creates a physical reaction in our body. So if we are thinking about something exciting that we're going to do, maybe we're going on a vacation that we've been like looking forward to for a really long time and we're excited, then you start to feel that excitement build up in your body. And in the same way, if you think of something that made you a bit angry, and maybe something pissed you off a bit earlier this week, and when you think about it, you're like, you can feel that still in your body, and because you're picturing that in your mind. If you do have that, peripheral vision is very good for calming that anger as well. But this submodality shift is because those pictures that we create have a direct relationship to have a direct effect on our physiology and what we feel in our body, what we feel emotionally. And then when that happens, the way we feel then changes the way we behave. So the better we feel, the better the behaviors. And what this does, it really immerses you into that picture. Okay. And then we use all your senses. So that VACOG there, a lot of you probably heard of that before. So visual, auditory, what you hear, kinesthetic, what you feel, olfactory, smell, and gustatory is taste. So the last two there don't use as often, but especially the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And kinesthetic, the feeling, that can be the feeling within you, your emotion, but it can also be the literal feeling underneath something you're picking up, something you're touching. And I use this in terms, if I am working, let's use climbing for the example again. When I'm doing this, I want them to be feeling what's underneath their fingers, it's tactile, so that they can create a physiological response in their body to that without even being on the wall, without being at the crag, but they can feel that rock. And so the more you practice something like this, when you do it so vividly, your subconscious doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imaginary. And so when you're doing it so vividly, every time you do it, it's like you're doing it for real. So that when you are at the point where you're actually in front of that rock face, then it feels like you've done it 100 times before because you've gone through this process. Okay. Yeah. So specifically to the submodalities, that's where we take these visualizations, so these pictures in our mind, and we can adjust them, and we can turn up those different sensory things that we're experiencing, or even turn them down as well if that's something we need to do, just like a volume switch that you would use on a stereo. So do you want to experience this right now? Awesome. Cool. So what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to use confidence for this example. So when you think about being highly confident, do you have a picture that comes into your mind? This can be a picture of you being highly confident in the past, or it can be you just creating a picture within your head of feeling highly confident. And so whatever comes to your mind, just trust that. So when you think of being highly confident, do you have a picture? And as you allow that picture to formulate in your mind, if you're a visual person who finds it easier to embody that with your eyes closed, you can go ahead and do that now. It's also something you can do with your eyes open. And I want you to see that picture in your mind, and all the colors within that picture, I want you to make them more vibrant, more vivid, brighter, so that all the colors in that picture really pop out at you. And as you make those colors pop, you may notice what that does to that feeling of confidence within you. And now I want you to bring that picture closer to you, and bring it so close that it's kind of panoramic around you. And the closer you bring it, you start to notice all the little details within those pictures. Those details seem to pop right out of you, and they're almost sparkling now. Just notice what that does for you. Just notice what that does for your sense of confidence. And if there's any sounds associated with this picture, I want you to make them louder. Make them louder so that you can really hear them. And now, just for fun, I want you to move that picture further away. And as it moves further away, the color starts to drain out of you, out of the picture. And as that color drains, just notice what that does for your sense of confidence, that feeling. And then bring that picture back towards you, bigger, brighter, more vivid, more vibrant than it was before. And as you bring it closer to you, just notice what that does for your sense of confidence. And once you've fully embodied and experienced that confidence within you, you can go ahead, open your eyes, and come back to the room. Awesome. How was that for everybody? What did you think of that? Good? Yeah, I love that one. And again, that is something that I use, and just allowing yourself to really tune into what is going on in that picture um, can really change how you're feeling within your body. And just like the peripheral vision, this is something that the more you practice, the more um, the more you'll embody that feeling of the confidence. And especially, you know, when you've experienced that before, many of you did say, yes, I've experienced that feeling, that kind of flow state before, whether it was on purpose or whether it's something that you found just happened for you. This is one of the things you can use to then recreate that. And then the more you do it, the more you'll just embody that feeling. And like I said, then your subconscious mind just sees it as a real thing that is happening. So then when you put yourself into that situation where you need it, then it's there for you. So the next one, the last one I'm going to go through is something called anchoring. And anchoring is something that you can use to basically turn on a feeling, turn on an emotion, and we use this for positive emotions, and we anchor that somewhere on our body. So that might be some people. So I do it with my ring finger. Some people do it by touching a knuckle with the opposite hand. Some people like to do it on their earlobe. So just it's totally up to you. And then basically we anchor feelings, emotions to that spot. So to when I do this, then I can feel that emotion because I built a physical anchor within me. Um, which is great. Like I was using it this morning before I did this. I've used it before I get on stage and walk up to the table for arm wrestling, because then I can just turn on that feeling that I want to very quickly, because this is something that I've built. And like everything, it takes some consistency. If you don't practice it, you can't expect to be able to access it a few months later, because the button won't do anything at that point. And so we're going to anchor a positive emotion here. Let's do, is there any positive emotion that anybody would like to do? This could be excitement, elation. It could be even feeling calm. Could be motivation. Does somebody want to put in the chat what they would like to do? And then we can do that as a group. Excitement. Cool. Thanks, Jared. So the way that you're going to do this, I've actually got a little diagram that is very blurred because I couldn't find a picture that was in focus. But I'm sure you can see, you get a feeling of what it says. So time is along the bottom, and that's just in seconds, and intensity along the top. So this curve that you see is basically, you're going to think of a time where you experienced this before, where you felt this excitement. And then as you're imagining that and remembering that, that's going to take you up this curve. And that first line, and it says anchor at the top there, that's where you kind of at the peak of that excitement. Okay. And then when you're at that peak, you're going to connect your anchor. And you're going to take a deep breath, breathe in that feeling, and then let that go. And then as you're coming down the other side, coming out of the peak of that experience, then you're going to let your anchor go, and then you can let it come down. So we just want to anchor the very top of that experience. And that can be the time that we're generally looking for during that peak is 5 to 15 seconds. So does everybody have a time in the past where they can say, yes, I felt really excited? I'm sure everybody has a time that they can say, yes, I felt excitement. So what I want you to do, I'm going to do it for myself here first. And again, I'm a visual person who When I'm doing this kind of thing, I like to close my eyes and do it. It is not something that is absolutely necessary, but that's how I do it. And so I'm gonna take a deep breath in, think of that time, and I reach the peak there, and then let it come down the other side. So simple as that. Okay, so go ahead. If you want to close your eyes, and think of that time where you felt truly excited, where as you think about it, you can really get that sensation in your body. And then I want you to take a breath in. And as you reach the peak of that feeling, use that anchor. And as you come down the other side, you can release it. Awesome. And so we're only going to do the one there for today. But when I build this with clients, I do 5 there and then. And it's any emotion. It's not like we anchor different emotions to different places, because then you'd be like, oh, where the hell do I find excitement? So any positive emotion, all to the same anchor. And so I do it 5 times with them right there and then, to really get the feeling of accessing those positive emotions when we need them. And then first of all, what I tell them to do is just fire that anchor. Start firing that anchor 5 times a day. Ideally, I'd want you to do it like 100 times a day, but I'm not going to tell someone to do that. So I tell them 5. But if you want to do 10, that's cool too. And yeah, this can be done. You're driving, just fire that anchor and create that feeling. You're getting dinner ready, fire the anchor and get that, elicit that feeling. And then the best way to continue to build it, because we want to always be building this as well, is when you're feeling amazing in the moment, anchor that right then and there, and add that to your anchor. That's the best way to anchor something, when you're actually experiencing it when you've just felt that excitement. And that is going to be, Kate said, my husband would be so happy if I used an anchor to get him excited about cooking dinner. You can try this with him and see if it works for him.
Annie, can I ask a question? When you say do it 5 times, is it 5 times for that exact same emotion and just repeat that exact same cycle? Or are you thinking of new experiences and new emotions?
I'm glad you asked that question. Thanks, Carrie. It's new emotions. So you can do different times. It's not that is going to affect things. So you could build multiple of the same emotion. So you could think of, say, 2 or 3 times where you're excited, and if they're different events, it'll help to build the excitement even more, because it just shows that you're able to access it in different contexts. But when I'm doing it with clients, I do 5 different emotions, because I want to show that you can access any positive emotion by using this anchor. And even if you just do 5, and I do 5 different ones, it doesn't mean that they can then only access those 5. So that then whenever they need something, where they're like, oh, I need, like, I use this in moments where I'm feeling a bit stressed. I'm like, okay, I need to bring that positive state to me. That's when I use it the most. But then, like everything, it takes consistency. And so if you haven't done the other part of building it yourself and practicing it, then you won't be able to access it when you need it. So it's like everything, takes consistency. I'm just gonna bring up my last, I just got one more slide. So yeah, takeaways from this last hour, yeah, have a look at yourself and where could you start to apply these things? Where would you find oh, my screen, that's fine. I'll come out of sharing now. Yeah, where can you apply these things in your own life? Where would you find them useful? And where would you like to have those moments where you can access these things? So yeah, take that away with you. And yeah, this is basically one of the small things that I include in my coaching program. I spend 8 weeks, usually online because I live really remotely, but if they're nearby, I can do it in person with them. And I call this the Olympian coaching program. And I'm working with athletes who are maybe struggling with creating that flow state. And it isn't, we go through a whole full 8-week program. So we're also looking at using different subconscious techniques to help to regulate emotions more and go deeper. And then they're much more able to use these tools because they've dealt with a lot of other things that they're struggling with. So yeah, that's what I offer to my clients. And like I just mentioned before, I just got back from Ottawa taking like my advanced coaching training. And so I just launched an offer actually where I'm just this week where I'm not giving them away. I'm selling my coaching packages right now at their old price, but including all the new material. I'm doing that for 5 people. 2 of those spots have gone. There are 3 left. So all that I ask of you, if you know someone that is like, oh, maybe they could benefit, maybe an athlete who might be struggling with things like confidence, with finding that, creating that flow state, that self-doubt, performance anxiety, if someone pops into your mind, just yeah, you can tell them about me. So
Annie, could I ask a question?
for sure.
This is Rich. Great job. Is flow state the same as euphoria? Like when you're in a euphoric state, is that higher than flow? The reason I'm asking is because after I was done with my TED talk and I walked out of the red dot, I just felt this surreal feeling like I was riding a magic carpet. And I just never felt that before. And I actually remember it. And I'm just wondering, is that flow or is that higher?
I would say flow is what was happening.
Okay.
And what you were feeling while you were doing your TED talk. And then your euphoria is what came to you afterwards. And so, because you're like, oh, once I stepped off the stage, I felt euphoric. So it's kind of like what I said earlier when I had that picture of me where I'm like letting all my energy out. It wouldn't have been appropriate for me to do that in the middle of my match. It would have almost created too much arousal for me but then once I've come off of that and I'm like, I've won, I've done exactly what I needed to do, then I can go into just letting that energy out. And that is my way of doing that. And so I think that is what that euphoric feeling was that you experienced afterwards. And I don't want to say, oh, there's a difference between the two, because like flow state is or isn't euphoria, because for some people it means something different for everyone. So euphoric means something different to all of us. And so for some people, they want to embody that euphoric feeling while they're doing the thing and in the flow state. But for some people, they want it afterwards. And so kind of dependent. But for you and what you just said, it sounds like that was like that energy coming out afterwards.
Sure.
But it follows all the things that we were talking about, like that time distortion and just a feeling of being out of your body almost. So
I really was. I don't remember being inside the dot. People ask me what it feel like. I don't remember. I was in I guess I was in flow. It just happened.
You totally I mean, that is
you.
a classic example, right? Where you're like, I don't know, I don't even remember it. Time felt like nothing. It felt effortless.
I was flowing.
That is a classic example, yes.
Thank you, Annie.
Well, yeah, thank you all for joining me
Annie,
today.
this was great. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for doing
Scott.
this for everybody. Awesome stuff. We could apply it, athlete, non-athlete.
Yeah, that's what's so great
Lots of
about it.
really good takeaways.
Mhm.
Awesome. Have a great weekend, guys.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks, Annie.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.